he's the leader of God's holy people. He's associated in his life with all these religious laws, but he basically lived for himself. A religious man who had all this religiousness about him, but in his heart he basically lived for himself. He had the label of a religious man, but that's it. He was religious on the outside, sacrilegious on the inside. And in many ways, we're like Samson. We have this religiousness about us. We go to church. We own Bibles. Perhaps some of you even own some Christian t-shirts. And perhaps on some occasions you actually even wear them. There's this religiousness about us, but sometimes that's the extent of our living for God. There's often rebellion in our hearts, and it shows in our lack of obedience, the choices that we make in our lives. There are certain rules of how to drive on the highway. You cannot drive on the on-ramp continuously forever. If you do that, you're eventually going to hit a wall. You cannot stop in the middle of the highway. You cannot drive in the wrong direction in the highway. If you drive against these rules, bad things will happen to you. And life is kind of like that, driving on the highway. God says, this is what life is about, and we cannot change that. There are certain rules to it. Just because we want some things other than God's plan for us, we cannot change the rules and say, this is how it's going to be. It just doesn't work like that. Only God gets to set the rules. So he continued to rebel against God's plan, and eventually he lost his eyes, found himself in a Philistine prison. When our first son was born, my wife went through, obviously terrible, painful labor. And every time she's pushing this baby out, because it's so painful, she has to grab something to, I don't know, like for leverage, I guess. So she would grab the rail on the bed, or sometimes she would reach over and grab my hand. I'd be standing next to her, and she'd reach over and grab my hand, and I'd support her like that. And so she's doing this for a few times, and maybe about the fourth time she's getting ready to push. She reaches over, she misses the rail, she misses my hand, and because she's in such pain, she's reaching for something, desperately reaching for something, trying to have some alleviation of her pain, she reaches for anything and grabs me right here, like right below the stomach, basically right above the appendix. And she squeezes my flesh really hard as she's pushing this baby out. Okay, now let me tell you, I don't know if any of you have experienced that, but God did not intend for man to be grabbed right here, because it hurts so much. It was such incredible pain. But the thing is, in that situation, I couldn't really scream, I mean, it would just be ridiculous. She's screaming. If I started screaming, it would just be silly. And it seemed inappropriate at the time to kind of say something like, oh, can you let go? Because she's going through intense pain trying to deliver this baby. So what did I do? I was like, oh, you're doing great. Just breathe. Just breathe. And all along, I'm trying to breathe myself. Just breathe. And I'm saying it to myself. I think there are two pains in that delivery room that day. There was labor pain and unnecessary pain. Her pain was necessary. Necessary pain to give birth to a child. My pain was unnecessary just because I was standing at the wrong place at the wrong time. What am I saying? I think Samson here, he went through terrible, unnecessary pain in his life. He could have chosen to submit his life to God, to fit into God's plan for his life. But he chose his own plan. In his life, he continually chose his own plan. So God had to discipline him through pain. And it's like that in life. Sometimes we experience some kinds of pain in our lives that God brings to us so that we can grow and bear fruit in our lives. Sometimes it's like that. And sometimes we experience pain in life because of our stubbornness, because of our rebellion, because we're not submitting ourselves willingly to God. It's smart of us to just simply submit to God, because we cannot change the rules. God sets the rules. He says what life is about. And He says you have to live according to these rules. And so it'd be smart to follow those rules. But many times we don't. And that's why we have to go through unnecessary pains in our lives, just like Samson. But because God is so absolutely gracious, even my unnecessary pain is out of His love for me, out of His love to help me to grow, to change me. So understand that in your life is not about you. You cannot decide what your life is going to be about. You cannot decide to live for what you want to live for. You might choose to do that for a while. But because God is so absolutely committed to you, He will not let you alone. And inevitably, that's going to lead to some sort of pain in your life. The fact that when Samson drank, that it's not necessarily the water that strengthened him, but it's God who strengthened him. To someone so self-exalting, he's so living for his own agenda, God is telling him, listen, Samson, I am the source of your strength. With God, Samson was able to strike down 1,000 men. Without God, Samson's weak and famished. Can my life really change? Can my habits really change? I mean, I'm involved in these habits. Can I really change? Can I really give that up? Because I enjoy it so much. And you, honestly, you can identify with Samson. Someone who's kind of religious, but you have such opposite desires in your heart. And you want to go this way when the Bible, you know God, the Bible is saying go this way. Everything in you says you want to go this way. And even in those inkling moments when you want to go this way, you're really wondering to yourself, can I really give this up? Can I really change? Can these habits that I've been holding on to for such a long time, can they really change? And you doubt that. I mean, yeah, maybe for a week I can keep it up. Maybe I can, but then that wouldn't really be real. Is it even worth it to even try when these desires are so strong? But that's the exact lesson that God's trying to get across to Samson. That I am the source of your strength. He's trying to teach him, look, with my strength, you're able to do something that is so extraordinary. Look at the 1,000 men around you. And that's possible because I am your strength. And that's what we need to realize. Can I really change? Can my habits change? Can I actually turn around 180 degrees and go the other way? God says, I am the source of your strength. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Apart from me, you can only hope to change. You cannot change. But with me, with the strength that I provide, understand this, that anything is possible in your life. Anything is possible in your life. Because God can do the impossible in your life. God patiently deals with Samson for 20 years, constantly teaching him the same lesson over and over again, never gives up on him, and continues to work in his life, it says, for 20 years. Like, you have a bad week, how do you feel when you come to church? Like, bad week meaning like, you sinned a lot, you didn't go to God at all, you just had a really bad week spiritually. How do you feel coming to church at the end of that week? You feel guilty. You're thinking, I'm so unworthy. I don't deserve to be here. God's not going to bless me today. He's not going to show His favor to me today. You know, both of our first two sons, Enoch and Daniel, they started walking at about 15 months. At about the 15-month mark. So I thought our third son, Abel, would walk at least by that time. Because I heard like when their older brothers are running around the house, they want to run around too, so they start walking earlier. So I thought maybe he would walk at like 13 months, 14 months. 14 months come, he's not walking. 15 months come, he's still not walking. 16 months, still not walking. And then at that point, in the summer, I had to go to Africa. So I was thinking, oh man, I'm going to miss his first step. I come back from Africa, he's still not walking. So I said to Christine, what's wrong with Abel? Why isn't he walking? She's like, I don't know, he just doesn't want to. 17 months come, and maybe, I think like finally at the end of 17, almost 18 months, he took his first step. And when he started walking, obviously, he's not even good at it, Like taking a few steps, like he falls down, take another step, he stumbles and falls. And even right now, it's like, he's walking, but he's learning still how to walk. Now, in that whole process of waiting for him to walk, watching him fall down, not once in that whole process did I say to Abel, Abel, what's wrong with you? I mean, what kind of baby are you? Do you realize that your brothers walked when they were 15 months? You know how old you are? Why aren't you walking yet? No, not once did I say something like that to him. Or when he started walking. Come on, Abel. One step? That's all you can do? Come on. Get back up and try again. And you better not fall down again. I mean, that'd be so absolutely ridiculous, right? What kind of father would do that? What kind of father would have a heart like that toward his son? But the thing is, the very interesting thing is, as a child learning to walk this Christian life, we impose those kinds of thoughts on the Father. If I don't walk correctly, God's not going to be happy with me. I fell again last night. God's going to love me less. He's not going to bless me. I keep falling. What's wrong with me? God must think something terrible of me. All along, as we're thinking those thoughts and imposing those thoughts on God, the Father's heart is, wow, one step? That's great. I've been waiting for that. Come here, son. And his focus is on our progress, not on our failures. And that's the heart of the Father. He is so ever patient with us. As we're learning to walk this Christian life, he is so committed to us, so patient with us. He wants to teach us how to walk, but never does he accuse us of our failures, of our falls. He's right there with us, ready to pick us up again so that we can take that next step, so that we can make progress toward him and become more like him in our lives.